They're all booked. Oh, wait a minute. There's a flight to Phoenix at 6:15. I said, well, hey, that's practically a suburb of Tucson. Only standby to Tucson from Phoenix. I'll take it. You know, I know I have the. We got to Phoenix. They said, you're at the top of the list. Here are your tickets. Get on the plane. So we got here a little late. No problem. We're here. And we're so glad to be here. You know, all of us are on Flight 2020. We're on this planet. I see, where's the planet right now? Who has it? There it is. There's two of them. Oh, one for each side. That makes sense. Yeah, we're all going through the Milky Way galaxy on this flight together. And I think that kind of puts in perspective, doesn't it? If we think, and with every new year, you know, there's always this idea, okay, what are my resolutions for the new year? How I'm going to live my life differently? How am I going to do it better than before? And if we look at the word resolution, there is the word resolute in it, isn't there? There's a sense of being resolved to a certain direction and purpose, which means that we are doing what we're doing with intention, with power, with energy. And that's not always easy to do. Do I lose weight or get a bigger basket? Now, there is, of course, option C, and what's that? Don't do anything. Try to stay the same. Take no action at all. And I think many people fall into that mindset sometimes. They think, well, my life's not going to change. You know, they're kind of fatalistic about how things are going to work out and just don't do anything. The things that we have in unity and in new thought, something that we really need to value, and what we have going for us, well, all you have to do is walk into the entrance of this church and you see a big sign there showing the 5 principles of unity. We have these principles, these tools that we can use, these principles of denial and affirmation, of letting go and giving power and energy to thinking. We don't have to stay stuck in a life that is unsupported of health, wholeness, and abundance. We have the hope of improvement because we have tools. But what we need to do, each one of us, is that we have to become flight mechanics. We have to attend to the airplane. We have to attend to the vehicle going through this flight number 2020. It's about becoming consciously aware of how we are directing our energy and our thoughts. We're either withdrawing energy from or taking away or releasing and letting go, divesting ourselves of a certain kind of thinking and believing about ourselves, or we're giving power to, we're giving energy to, attention to, we're energizing a certain direction we'd like to go. Back in 1895, Unity's first book was published. Anybody remember what it's called? Starts with the word lessons, ends with truth. Written by Emily Cady. And it is a marvelous book. I know it's an important book here at Unity of Tucson because I've read your bylaws and I saw the word lessons and truth mentioned more than once as something that's important. Now, the thing about that book, written in 1895, is that it was written in a language a little different than today's language. Can you imagine lessons in truth written in text language? It seems kind of funny. But if you were from which I speak. But it is written in kind of an endure to all generations. And so, back to, yeah, you know, if I regress back to being a 12-year-old, it happens occasionally. But we read that denial, and this is from Lessons in Truth, denial is the first practical step toward wiping out of our minds the mistakes and beliefs of a lifetime, the beliefs that have made so sad of our lives. Now, we all grew up with a family where we adopted certain attitudes and beliefs about ourselves. Grew up perhaps with a former faith tradition that had a certain viewpoint about who you were. And perhaps we need to make a part of our flight check whether any of these belief systems are persisting and causing us challenge. By denial, we mean declaring not to be true a thing that seems true. I mean, we can kind of make up our own truth, whether it's really a universal truth or not, can't we? We can spin stuff in our consciousness all kinds of ways to justify being a certain way. And so we have to decide whether or not this something that's in my life has any value, any validity. Denial brings freedom from bondage, and happiness comes when we can effectually deny the power of anything to touch or trouble us. These are one of our tools we can use not just at the beginning of any year, but every moment. And to be tuned into that as we walk through life, that's the challenge. And so denials have an erasive or dissolving tendency. You got your money in a certain stock and it starts to go. Affirmations, you have denials where you clear it out, makes room for a more positive approach to life. To affirm anything is to assert positively that it is so, even in the face of all contrary evidence. That contrary evidence can come from people around you who will tell you, you can't do that, or this doesn't work, or whatever is out there in mass consciousness, simply affirming a thing to be true, a thing that to all human reasoning or sight does not seem to be true at all. We can bring the thing to pass, but we can compel ourselves to cease all futile quibbling and go to work to prove the rule, each one in his own life. Affirmations build up and give strength and courage and power. And now the next one. There we go. There she is, Emily Cady. Friendly face, isn't she? Should be to everybody. She had a lot to say. She even had more than just one book. I think there's a couple others after that. And that's her tool chest. Now, you see that tool? Can you see that? That's a tool chest like you'd have in 1895. Now, there's no batteries or plugs to put in, Just old, elbow grease. That's what we need to do. We need to use a little elbow grease with our lives. And to know, starting with this denial here, there is no evil. Let's say that together. There is no evil. Now, we look out in the world, we turn on the news, and we see all kinds of crazy stuff happening. You're thinking, what do you mean there isn't evil? There is no evil power out there. There are decisions that are not for the highest good of everybody on this planet, but there's no power out there working against us. The Spirit of God is always for us, with us, guiding us. We just have to tune into that truth. And then from an affirmative point of view, I am a child or manifestation of God, and every moment God's life, love, wisdom, and power flow into and through me. I am one with God and governed by God's law. Let's say that together. I'm a child or manifestation of God, and every moment God's life, love, wisdom. Do you feel empowered? Do you feel like, I don't have to do it like I did back in 2019. I can be new today. I can be transformed today. For Flight 2020 to be different than Flight number 2019, we've got to make changes. We have to make sure that our positive attitude and gratitude are engaged. We must turn off destructive feelings such as pity and resentment and so on. We have to release the negative experiences of whatever happened, or the plane is not going to get off the ground. Too much baggage, too much weight. Have our good activated, or is gonna be different, even if we do nothing at all. Because let's face it, the one constant in life, and you've heard this before, is what? Change. It's going to change. How it changes, that's kind of determined by us and how we approach things. Next slide. We read in the book of Romans, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So how do we break out of the cocoon and fly? How do we do that? We have to take a look at certain aspects of our consciousness that we need to transform and change the way we look at. And let's start off with something we all deal with: regrets. Anybody have any regrets here about anything? Well, sometimes, where we say to ourselves, "I had done it, and I didn't do it." So we've got these disappointments that we have to come to terms with in ourselves and to resolve. All the what ifs: I had done this and not done that. When I was leaving Eau Claire, where I served last, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, I met a lot of wonderful colleagues there from denominations of churches that are, shall we say, welcoming of Unity ministers. That's not always the case when you come to town as a minister from Unity. They were very welcoming, and I became friends with Reverend David Huber, who is the minister of Plymouth United Church of Christ. And when I first met him, I said, "Well, I was actually christened in your church." And he looked at me like this and go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Plymouth Congregational Church, Hammond, Indiana." And he goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." So we became good friends. Found out later that he, when he was first in the ministry, he was an intern at Central Union Church in Honolulu, right down the street where I went to high school, where we went to our baccalaureate service when I graduated. And so we had an instant connection. And we made a decision, or we made an appointment to have lunch before I left town. And guess what? Something came up. He couldn't make it. We couldn't reschedule. We got out of town. I got out of town. And we did have lunch together. As Dr. Seuss says, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. This is how to look at regrets. That if we had something good happen in the past and maybe we didn't get to experience as much of it, smile because you did have something there. Our flight number 2020 will be filled with gratitude and with joy. Another thing that can burden us on our flight are hurts, slights, comments, looks from people. You've probably had some of this before. People give you vibes and you're like, oh, In Hawaii, we used to call that stink face. That's a local pidgin English term for that. I guess it's go out in the desert and look at one of the lizards crawling a stink face. What do we do with these hurts? Do we want to keep them? Do we want to keep reciting them to other people to keep them alive in us? Well, what can we do instead? We can choose to forgive. How unforgiveness jams us up, gets in the way of the flow of good. And so we need to replace hurt with forgiveness. And that doesn't mean that we are condoning maybe something that somebody did to someone we love or to ourselves. It just means that we're letting go of that pain of controlling our lives any longer. That it's time to move on. And that we are to do it all the time. I forgive him up to 7 times. Jesus. Now, if you're a statistician, you may be sitting there thinking, well, when I hit 490, I'm done. Now, if you're a Bible literalist, I suppose that might make sense. But that's not the gist of what this is about, is it? Forgiveness is about all the time. It's an ongoing process. We all have to work with it. Why? Because we're part of the human race. And we see human-ish kind of things done, either by ourselves or we need to forgive ourselves for maybe saying something or doing something that was maybe unkind or not sensitive to someone else's ideas. So we need to enter into Flight 2020, living life from the heart, living life from love. And then there's number 3, wasted time. You look back and you're like, well, I wasted my time doing that, or at least we perceive that we wasted time. We might think that some of the jobs we've had in life were a total waste of time. Now, I took 12 years off from pulpit ministry, from 2005 to 2017-ish, right thereabouts, for a certain reason. If you look at my resume, you go, boy, that's a big gap, guy, you know. 3 college-age children who wanted to attend Indiana University and needed financial aid. What did that mean? Remaining Indiana residents. In South Bend, but didn't work out. You'd think I would have with a name like Studebaker. That's where they made them. Maybe that's why I didn't get it, because I shut the factory down. And, So that's what you heard. I did a lot of workshops about my Bible book, and I got around to a lot of churches. I spoke in a lot of churches. Got to see what was going on in them, and I did over at New Thought Unity. So I did keep going in the ministry, but I wasn't, we're running a church. And once the last child was through Indiana University, we were at Memorial Stadium. There's 7,000 graduates. I saw him in the audience. And then a month or so later, when his degree arrived, I wanted to make sure that we were done. Entry process that Unity ministers have to go to get back in the ministry we held together was we worked in a call center. I understand there are a lot of call centers in Tucson. I think I read that somewhere. And she worked for 12 years as a call center agent on the phone, and later as a chat agent. You ever used a chat agent on a website? Oh, she's a professional. I worked for that place for 3 years. I had a great time, great time. But you think, why did you do that? Well, again, we had our reasons. Of course, they paid us so much money. And when I left and turned in my resignation, I was up for a raise. I was going to be making $14 an hour. That was awesome. But we've all had jobs like that where we did it for a reason. Could have been for our children, could have been for some other reason that was important to us. But was it a waste? When I think of working in a call center, you think about the ministry, do you see any comparisons there? You get a call and somebody is mad as a hatter, upset about their order. Why isn't it here? I live in northern Wisconsin, and you sent me my fruit trees in the middle of February. I said, well, bless you, sir. Here's what we can do. So it's learning how to sort of diffuse the emotional energy that's going on, speak and respond in some sort of problem-solving and empathetic way. Do you think that helped my ministerial skills at all? And hers? Oh my goodness, It's not a waste. Any memory of wasted time is something that we have to replace with simply bringing our awareness into the now moment. The stage, you come right back into the now moment. You focus on that. You breathe in the air in that moment. And then all of a sudden you realize, my life hasn't been a waste. It's been unfolding in divine order. You may not have understood why it went that way, but sometimes in retrospect, in hindsight, you're going to see the logic of why it happened. As we read here from the author of the prophet, Khalil Gibran, life goes not backward, nor it's more important than savoring the experiences of life that are unfolding before us. Now, Unity of Tucson, you've heard, is on flight number 2020. It's a new year, a year of change, a year of new leadership. And when we think about our role in this process, I'm thinking back, counting, 34 years ago. It was July, it was the summer of 1986, and this sanctuary had just been built. And we were between ministries. We were between El Paso and Los Angeles. We were living in Green Valley. And you're thinking to yourself, weren't you a little young to live in Green Valley? Well, thanks to Leonard and Ruth Elster, my grandparents, they took us in. And we lived there for about 6 weeks. Right after this building was built, Sat right over there. Yeah, right there. Came a couple times. Totally impressed with the flags, the whole ambiance of the place. And after one of those Sundays, we were invited out to brunch with your ministers. Very welcoming of us. And you know where we had brunch? The place we woke up this morning to come here. Westward Look. How weird is that? I mean, I had no clue. 34 years later, this flight that we're on involves a certain bit of not just focusing on what our goals are, of being open and surrendered to possibilities you've never even thought of. The unplanned good is a part of this flight. And so we need to be open to that process. And it happens sometimes without any effort at all. I didn't even know about the opening here in your church until your interim minister told of me on Facebook. You're laughing. I'm not kidding. He said, hey, Alden. You know, she even tagged me. You know, when they tag you, everybody can see that. What do you think about Tucson? And I'm like, okay. We have a packet of information. I said, all right, send it to me. And I looked it over. I prayed about it. I thought about it. I go, I think we could take a look at that, you know? So Donna and I are looking forward to a new start somewhere. We've lived in the Midwest now 25 years. I understand that the climate here does not require the purchase of one of these. I spent 2 months on Craigslist looking for the perfect and right snowblower. I know you're not looking on Craigslist for a minister, but you are looking for the perfect and right minister. I found it. You know, up there in Wisconsin, they got all kinds of like 40-year-old snowblowers for $200. That was used twice before I bought it. You'll notice this scene up here. That's my driveway back in February of this year. And that's when my colleague, Reverend David Huber, and other colleagues of mine, and I did church from Facebook. It was only a minute-long talk. Uh-oh, it's almost 11. So sometimes you have to punt when it's like that. So I understand you don't need one of these. And when I left Eau Claire, the day I left on December 9th of last year, members of my former church came by with their truck, and we took it to one of our more financially challenged members of our church, and we gave it to them, just so I didn't want this anymore. Now, I understand that a snow shovel is a thing here in Tucson. I was on Wikipedia looking at the snowfall total, broke the all-time snowfall record, 98.9 inches. That's higher than this. Yeah. So I heard that, you know, here you don't have to really worry about having snow tires on your car or having a snow shovel handy, though I suppose a snow shovel would be good for shoveling up gravel, you know, and it kind of blows and, you know, like that. And one of my closest friends and colleagues lives in Lee Summit. When he heard I was coming to interview here, he said, do you know how hot it gets in Tucson? And I wrote him back, and I actually copied this quote from the email. I said, you know, there's nothing quite as exhilarating as the feeling of the hair in your nostrils instantly freezing, breathing in air at minus 30 degrees. 2 mornings in a row in February, minus 30. So beyond the balmy climate here in Tucson, by the way, I have noticed everybody wearing their winter coats. And I was admiring one of the folks here today wearing a shirt and shorts, and I'm like, but beyond that, the opportunity that your ministry presents to a prospective minister is rare. It's an opportunity to come and work with all of the good that went into creating this ministry. All of what, I mean, the tour yesterday of your facility, I've not seen a place quite like this. I know the extra things have happened since 1986, but this is just an awesome place. So we're all on this flight number 2020. Whether we're taking the same plane together is the question at hand. Candidates for the position here. I know the other two. I consider them friends of mine. I've known one of them 40 years. We're all good. And if Spirit leads us here to continue on the same plane together, that would be wonderful. And if not, that's okay too, because we know that each of us is part of one another's spiritual process. It's not anything that we have to regret if it doesn't work out for us, because of the wonderful experience we're having. And so we all need to be confident, as we've heard from Karen here, about trusting the process and knowing that the best possible outcome is unfolding. Thank you.
Okay. All right. As you're coming forward, please take your ties in your hands and hold them. Energize them as we bless them together. Divine love, as me, blesses